Hello, Happy New Year. Fulham still haven't played a game of football since we last spoke, Joe Sansom. But how are you?
Really good. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope everyone had a nice break. Although, for the second year in a row, we've been robbed of Christmas time football. And I am
Mm.
not counting that 0-0 draw with Southampton when Matt Wells was our manager. I am not counting that as festive football behind closed doors. We've been robbed again. Sure, we're getting into the ins and outs of why the game's been called off, but
Mm.
it looks, touch wood, like we might play a game this Saturday, so we might as well preview it. And fingers crossed this time we don't have to preview it a second time, like we're going to have to do with Birmingham/Reading a little bit.
Mm. Okay, there's plenty to talk about. I was on the podcast yesterday, and we didn't really get into the ins and outs of why games were postponed. We touched on it, but we didn't get into it. And I genuinely feel like that's something we can talk about today, because Birmingham, Reading, and Swansea, it's their fault that the game's been off. It's not been our doing. It's not Fulham COVID cases. It's theirs. We're not the only club. I think I was looking at the table, and I think Sheffield United are also the team that have been shafted, and they're
Yeah,
still on 22 games, I think, as opposed to our 23. So it's not just Fulham, but this is a Fulhamish video. We're going to talk about Fulham. So can I get your thoughts on Reading? Because that's the one that seems to be causing the most conversation. They played yesterday against a Derby team who are fighting for their lives and are doing extremely well under Wayne Rooney, uh, and bottled a 2-goal lead. I just watched the highlights literally 10 minutes ago. Andy Carroll nearly scored. It was a good save. And then Hoylett scored twice, and then Curtis Davis and Kazim Richards, who's got the goal back. Let's talk about Reading and the fact that they got that game postponed due to COVID and injuries. For me, that's just, you can't call off a game for injuries, because that's what the academy's for. That's what a big squad's for, to cover those injuries. So let me know your thoughts.
yeah. I mean, as you say, Birmingham won fine. Apparently, they had an outbreak. Most teams now are citing injuries as well, but from what everyone said about the Birmingham one, they had an outbreak just before they played us. What can you do? Obviously, that's going to happen. The Swansea one sounds like they're still recovering from an outbreak and it just will come too soon. Sorry, the game would have come too soon if it had been played on Monday. The Reading one, so frustrating because a Reading journalist, I think it's Jonathan Lowe, tweeted on the day of the postponement that it looked like the game was going to go ahead unless there was any outbreaks in the Fulham camp, which basically suggests that Reading were recovered enough in terms of enough players back. And the reason that I've got a bugbear with this Reading one is simple: is that they had a game called off quite a while before we played them, well over the 10-day isolation period, and completely appreciate that when players come back after having COVID, they might have some side effects. They might not be able to train straight away. Absolutely fine. The reason that I'm struggling to compute why this was called off is because they were suggesting that there was increased cases. Um, so that means that there's basically been two outbreaks, and that makes me wonder, after the first one, what have they been doing as a club to stop this happening? Because clubs like Fulham this year, I know we had an outbreak last year, have controlled their squad. There clearly hasn't been any Christmas parties from what I've seen online. There hasn't been anything crazy in terms of players giving it to each other. Fulham seems to be under control, and I think every club can do that within reason.
Mm.
Um, the fact they brought injuries into it suggests that they had some players back, some weren't, and they needed to call it off because they didn't have their best players back. That's how I saw it. In their game against Derby yesterday, they didn't have a Jaria. I wonder if he, being a key player, maybe they were losing a few others like Swift, etc. And they just thought, well, if we put injuries in, we can call it off and we can play Fulham when we've got a stronger team. Um, and from a Reading point of view, obviously morally it's wrong to do that, but it does make sense. And I just want to point out that I'm not necessarily accusing Reading of using COVID to their advantage or adding injuries to a COVID stricken squad, because obviously everyone's health and safety must come first. But it does make me question the system, because we've gone from having one or two games postponed um, to several, and now we've gone over the 10-day period and a club is still calling games off. And it does it just does seem a little bit dodgy. And what I would want is, I'm not asking for us to be given the 3 points, as some have suggested. I don't want that. I just want clarification on, okay, how many players did they have? Because if they have 14, the rule is they should play the game.
Mm.
And the fact that their squad was a bit depleted yesterday against Derby makes me feel slightly better about it, and that we weren't being completely mugged off. But it puts us, from a footballing perspective, at a big disadvantage in January, because points on the board are better than games in hand. We've learnt this. We had it last season. They are worth so much more because they're banked. They're there. They're on the table. They'll be there until the end of the table, and you can add to them later. Games in hand mean nothing because you could lose them.
Mm.
We need 1 point from our 2 games in hand to go back into the automatic places. We need, 4 points to go above Bournemouth on goal difference. 6 points to go 2 clear again. So it's still in our hands, but we're at such a disadvantage, and it's at no fault of our own. And that's what is frustrating, because us and Sheffield United, and the reason that I would put us as being more shafted than Sheffield United is that Sheffield United have had their own outbreak. So they are responsible. Again, I don't want to blame someone for catching COVID. That's not what I mean. But they are the club responsible for the game getting called off, if you see my train of thought. So frustrating, yes. We're going to play it soon, and January is going to be tough. But what was your take on it, Jack?
I think it's a bit disingenuous, to be honest. The fact that it could just be a coincidence, but the fact that they called off the game against Fulham, who are at the time were second, and are now fine to play against a Derby team who are, had went into administration, bottom of the table, not the best squad, and we're like, yeah, we can play that. That's fine. There is your karma. You went 2-0 up, and you bottled it, and you dropped 2 points to a very, very, very tenacious Derby team. And look, we'll play you next week. We'll see you next Tuesday. That is in no way saying that word to you. But we're playing you next Tuesday at the Madejski Stadium at 8 o'clock. So the game is going to go ahead. There's 2 sides to this. One, I'm a fan of football. I'm a fan of Fulham. I love to see us play Wednesday, Saturday, because it's fun. There's also the other side of it, fixture congestion, Serie A AFCON. The squad's going to have to be stretched, and there's going to have to be a lot of chopping and changing, and squad harmony and continuity could affect performances and results. But we just have to deal with it. And this is the world we live in at the moment. And we, out of all the 24 teams in the Championship, and even stretching it out of 44 teams from the Premier League and the Championship, have been dealt the hardest cards. We are lucky we have the resources and the squad where we could possibly deal with these issues by hopefully picking up a lot of points in a short space of time, catching up on Bournemouth, and hopefully getting back into the top of the table. The Reading thing is odd, and I didn't like the fact that they included injuries. I'm not liking the fact that other clubs are including injuries in their reasons, because before COVID was a thing, if you had loads of injuries, like who was the team the other day that played who had a load of injuries? Leeds. They played Arsenal and got battered. And that wasn't even down to COVID. It was just the fact they had a load of injuries, a load of key players out. And that is football. That happens. It's happened to Fulham before, and I'm sure it will happen again at some point. And look, you've just got to get on with it. But to sort of include injuries in the same bracket as a COVID outbreak as an issue, to postpone a game, for me, is morally wrong, and it sort of questions the integrity of the football club and the league. And I feel like very frustrated how the EFL haven't come out with any sort of statement to be a little bit more transparent with what you can have in order to postpone a game. They haven't been consistent enough or transparent enough. And for me, that's where everyone's sort of in the dark. They go, well, what's enough to get a game off and what's not? And luckily for Fulham, we haven't actually been in a situation where we've had a COVID outbreak. So we are clean as a whistle and can just get on with playing some football. Frustration is we've got a lot of games in a small amount of time, which, of course, like I said yesterday on the pod, isn't unheard of in the Championship. You do get those situations. But we're getting to a crunch period in the league where we need to win, and we're on a poor run of form. We haven't won since 20th of November. So that's my 2 pence on it. And I just think once we get into these rhythm of games, we'll get back to watching some football, and hopefully we'll bring a lot of smiles back to the faces of Fulham fans. Because, Joe, we haven't played in so long, but FA Cup weekend, Bristol City, and this is another thing that's been quite annoying, actually, because of these whole COVID situations. I've just been reluctant to book a train up to Bristol just in case it gets called off. But Sammy did mention to me yesterday that Aston Villa and Derby were both in this situation last year and forced to play the kids when Villa played on the BBC against Liverpool and played the likes of Louis Barry, who scored, and Liverpool still managed to win the game. I can't remember the score in the end, 4-1 or something like that. So yeah, I think that the FA rules is if you have a squad, albeit with injuries or COVID, you have to just play the kids, and that's fine. This game won't be replayed. We'll go to extra time and penalties if need be. But it's just another long trip to Ashton Gate. So I still haven't booked a train or a coach. I think me and my friend Will are going to get the coach to the game, just jump on it. And because it's a 12:30 Ashton Gate, we've already done it this season. We don't have to spend another 2 or 3 hours in the Wetherspoons having picture after picture for an FA Cup game where realistically we'll probably play the likes of Pajaziti, Josh Onomar. We'll get into that team later a bit. But yeah, I suppose I'm excited to see Fulham play week in, week out, and every few days. But it could take a bit of a blow on our squad in terms of fatigue, and that could affect results where we could have got 3 points on a Saturday. We might get the 1-1 draw on a Wednesday night because we're a little bit tired. But I'll always be optimistic. This team's got a lot of quality, Joe. How are you feeling about this run of fixtures in terms of how many points we can pick up, the opposition we're playing, and just where we could probably be at the end of the month? And of course, we'll come on to some transfers as well because it is January.
It is, thank goodness for that. Yeah, I mean, I think we've both gone over a lot of the negatives about this, and I think that it's more negative than positive how this whole situation has happened. But there are some definite positives, one of which is that we have an FA Cup game before we have a league game, which in my mind is positive because it gives everyone a chance to get back up to speed. We don't have to play a full strength team, but maybe anyone that needs a bit of sharpness, we need to tweak anything. We sort of have room to do that because I don't think I'm alone in saying that I don't think we're going to win the cup this year. We're focusing on the league. We're going to play a weakened team. I think it's a good thing that we have this first. So that out of the way. Then another good thing about the fixtures pile up is that when you get into a good run of form, you just want the next game straight away.
It's true.
You want it to come. When we went on that run of 7 wins in a row, I think the period Blackburn and then Peterborough is a perfect example. We couldn't wait to play again. And we knew that we were all confident that we were going to win, and we did, and it was a bit tough. But you carry that winning momentum. If that game had come after the international break, would it have ended 0-0? Possibly. It was going that way, but it felt like because we were on a winning run, anything was possible. Also, small amount of time, but a large amount of games means I think we're more likely to get back to winning ways. And as you just asked me, these fixtures are all winnable, and I think we should win. Being realistic, most of them. I'm not going to say all of them, even though I'd love to. Reading, Birmingham, Bristol City, they've all been poor this season. And Bristol City, yes, they won on the weekend with Andy Vyman scoring his 800th Ashton Gate goal of the season. But they are very beatable. They concede a lot of goals. They drop a lot of points from winning positions. I'm still annoyed that we didn't win there in September when we 100% should have done. Regardless of any offside goal, we should have beaten them with the chances we had. So in answer to your question, I'm feeling positive about these fixtures because I've been raving about our squad quality for months. This is when to use it. This is what that quality of squad is for. There's no point in it if you're going to play the same team every week. Obviously, it's nice having those options there off the bench, but they're there to be used. You can bring on Chalabar now. In the Cup, you can play Onomar, Francois, Pajaziti, as you said. You can play Muniz or Stansfield if he's back from his surgery up front. You can play Knockaert or Cavallero. I mean, I'm not saying that I love them, but you can play them on the wings and not have to worry about Cabana or Wilson picking up knocks. Gazaniga, give him a go in goal, etc. And it's January, as you said. So this is the time when I would hope that players that are on the fringes are really fighting to get into the team, because if you don't get into it now, you could be off on loan or you could be off permanently. There's a lot of players that are playing for their shirt, not necessarily here, but playing for potential suitors. People like Cyrus Christie, people like Knockhart, they're likely going to get moves away. So I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by the team selection, which I guess we'll come on to now for the Bristol City Cup game. I mean, if it's me in charge, and it's not, luckily for everyone,
Really?
then I'd probably go for a majority of a second string team with a few players that haven't played too much. For example, Chalobah, who I think will have a bit of a run in the side possibly now that Seri's gone to the Africa Cup of Nations. First off, I reckon, what would you play if you were Marco Silva for this cup game against Bristol City?
Yeah, I think it's good to get that sort of game time back into the legs and get the feel of it. But we've got a game against Reading, which I'd rather pick up 3 points from. So I would go with a team of, and we were discussing it yesterday on the group chat. It's slightly altered from the one I put out yesterday. It will go Fabry, Stevie Sess.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I think I'd play Fabry. Why wouldn't you, honestly? Fabry, Stevie Sess at right back, if not Cyrus Christie. Hector, Mawson, left back, Brian, or what's his name?
Larkesh,
who hasn't played for the first team yet. He looks a prospect in the unders. So Joe Bryan, perhaps. And then we have a midfield of Pajaziti with Natty Chabs, Nathaniel Chalobah. You could have Tyrese Francois floating, I suppose. Josh Onomar, maybe. And I was going to actually say Josh Onomar in the 10, or Bobby D. Cordova-Reid, just to get him a little bit of minutes back at Ashton Gate. And then I'd go with Knockhart on one side, Cavallero on the other, God help us, and up front, Rodrigo Muniz. And I think that's a team that could potentially beat a Bristol City team. I don't think I'm going to put up a very strong team either. And that's the problem with a championshie tie in the FA Cup, is that no one's really asked. No one's like, oh, we have to get through. This is a massive game. And I don't think Bristol City, albeit they're in a position in the championship where they're not going to go up and they're not going to go down, I don't think. They could make a late run for the playoffs. They had a big win over Mill the other day, 3-2, and that might give them a little bit of momentum. But in terms of, they might play the likes of Alex Scott, who's quite a good player. The youngster, Vyman might play. I mean, I don't really know. But in terms of Fulham, that's what I'd play it. And what would you play?
Yeah, I think I'd be very similar. I mean, do I want to win this game? Of course I do, because Fulham are playing. But am I going to be distraught if we don't go through? No. I think I'd be very similar to you. I feel like as much as it'd be great to see Fabry in goal, he will remain a myth, and it will be Gaza, although no problem with that. I'd like to see him play another game for us. In terms of the defence, I agree. Although one thing that I would say is it would be great to see Congolo if he's back, but we don't know if he's back. He's in the training pictures.
That'd be nice.
He's not being included in any injured lists by Marco Silva, but I don't know whether that's just because he's written him off. I mean, I hope not. Midfield, I agree. And up front, I agree. I feel like it should be second string. It's going to be second string. And then if we need to bring on anyone, we can. I wouldn't risk anyone like Mitrovic or Tosin or Reed or anyone like that. I just wouldn't play them for a single minute if it can be avoided. We mustn't forget that, am I right in saying it could go to extra time and penalties, or just penalties?
Yeah,
there's no replays.
I think it's extra time, which is such an inconvenience. That could be a huge inconvenience if you're getting the train back, if you've got one booked for a certain time, but given the 2-mile walk back to the station. Second string team, really, Joe.
Yeah, second string, and then go full pelt for Reading. I mean, I guess we should probably say what we play for that Reading game, seeing as it's on the Tuesday.
I suppose.
I would like to think that our full strength team will be very similar to the one that played against Sheffield United. I thought that when fit, that was our strongest team.
And we lost.
and they didn't play very well. So what I would say is put Reed further back in the 6, where Seri is now departed for the Africa Cup of Nations. And then in terms of the rest of the midfield, I would still play Carvalho, but the other midfielder I would play. You know what? I want to give Chalabar a go. I do, because I really feel like he could be a quality player for us. I liked what I saw against Birmingham.
Yeah,
Didn't
he
quite
was
hit the
good.
mark against Bristol City, and then he was obviously injured for a bit. Um, Against Reading, he was fine, and when he came on against QPR, he didn't have much to do. So those are the only times we've seen him. So I'd like to see him have a run in the squad. Silva clearly likes him, and
Mm.
we bought him for this exact reason.
Mm. For the squad depth, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure African Cup of Nations was in the mind of Marco Silva when he joined the club, knowing he'd lose, albeit just only one player in John Mikel Seri. Hence the good midfield options we do have. Kenny, Onomar can still slot into those positions. Even Bobby D. Cordova Reed, who played in midfield under he who shall not be named in that championship season, and even played at right back last season. Of course, he's a utility player. No mention of Dennis Adoy in any of those games.
Yeah.
Perhaps he could play against Bristol City, maybe.
Tell you what, if it wasn't Stevie Sess at right back, I'd play Adoy, not Christie, purely because it sounds
Christie's
like
moving, isn't he?
Christie's going to go, and good for him. He deserves to play
Mm.
somewhere. He's not going to get game time here. So Adoy if Stevie Sess isn't going to play.
A bit of admin housekeeping. Marlon Fossey went to Bolton on loan. Good luck to him. Still a player who's always been on the fringes. He's been here for such a long time, but never really got a chance at the first team. And
Can't believe he's
Domingos,
23, by the way.
I know.
Fossey.
I think it's look. The competition for places at Fulham has always been very difficult, especially if you're a youth player coming up. You've got to be exceptional to get into the first team. But Marlon Fossey has always been someone who just never really got a first team chance. And it genuinely feels like at now, the age of 23, he should probably move on. He had that loan spell at Shrewsbury last season, I think. Now at Bolton. So good League One level for him. And yeah, Domingos Quina is now going back to Watford. I'm not too surprised about that. Played against Blackpool and was pretty poor. And yeah, he was okay against Leeds in the cup, but I mean, it hasn't really worked out for him, has it? And it's frustrating because it seemed his interview when he joined the club was that he was going to be working hard, really, to get a place in the squad, but it just didn't work out that way, Joe.
No, real shame. And also, Marco Silva said in a press conference, I think a couple of months ago, he needs to work harder in training. And then we had the bug hit our squad, and he couldn't even get on the bench with a lot of key players out, which I think said it all, really. You should be getting on that bench. You should be trying to get a starting spot. And we don't see training. We can only go off what he says. But fact is, Marco Silva's clearly brought him in thinking that he can do something for us, and he hasn't worked hard enough. And when he has had the chance, albeit very limited chances, he hasn't impressed.
No, not at all. Before we get on to the fun part, which is the January transfer window, it was Christmas. Did you get any Fulham-related gear for Christmas? Not including the yearly calendar that I'm sure everyone gets.
Oh, yeah, the calendar. Well, of course, I got the calendar, which is fantastic value. I did get a Fulham coat, which I'm sure will be debuted at Fulham ground or even the Majeski very soon. It is the dark blue, the navy.
Oh, yeah.
Full zip coat, waterproof, very nice. And I also got the Art of Football T-shirt with the bear on it, with the Pizza Hut shirt. I recommend looking at Art of Football if you don't know them. They sell some great stuff. Jack, I seem to think you've got quite a few things Fulham related.
Christmas for me is like a shopping spree at Fulham retail store, basically.
Yeah.
Anyone who got any Fulham related stuff, put it in the comments. I really like to hear what everyone got. That includes, of course, the calendar, which we'll start with. I got the calendar, of course, like I do every year. Alexander Mitrovic's January. A nice way to start the year off. I got a really nice light blue. I was wearing it yesterday, actually. Light blue Fulham top. It's the new one from this year. It's like a zip up jumper. It's more of it's training wear basically.
Yeah.
I'll try and put it on for one of the next away games, perhaps Bristol City. Got that, and then my girlfriend did bits and got me a Rodrigo Muniz shirt, the yellow one, the one we wore at Blackburn away. I actually have the yellow one from last season, but because of the new logo on the sponsor, this makes me sound extremely sad. I quite like it, so got a bit of Rodrigo Muniz, and then she asked me what I wanted, and I said, "Can you draw me a picture of Alexander Mitrovic?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." And she just did an unbelievable job.
Very
I mean,
good.
I will whack it up on Twitter once I get it up. It's framed. I need to put it up on my wall. I'm gonna do that this evening. It's of a picture of him against Cardiff in the championship this season. We won 2-0. I mean, it's just unbelievable detail on the shirt, on the face, on the surroundings. Incredibly talented, and just an unbelievable. Like, if I was to sell that, not like I'm going to, but it would probably go for a lot in terms of just the level of detail. Someone generally thought that I had it drawn for me by someone else, but no, it was her. It was brilliant. So full credit to her. GG, she did well, and I did well for her in terms of her Christmas gift. So we're square. Let's get on to the transfer window. It's January. It's only a month. But knowing us and the giddiness that we get over this sort of period, I'm sure we'll be sitting here on the 31st of January, live streaming the signings of whoever and whoever. Joe, give us your top 3 targets.
Top 3 targets. Wow. Okay. Well, first up is OK. I am very bad at pronouncing his surname. Yokuslu, I believe, or Yokuslu. He's now a Celta Vigo defensive midfielder. He was on loan at West Brom for the second half of last season in the Premier League. Did very well. Plays for the Turkish national team. And I really think that this is the sort of signing that we should be targeting in this window. Someone that we think can make the step up. There's no point signing a championship journeyman that might get us 5-6 goals between now and the end of the season, for example, or just fill in at centre mid. We should be getting someone that can make the step up with us, should we get promoted, which we hopefully will. This window for me is all about preparing for next season now. It will be a failure if we don't go up, so let's prepare for it. He would be one of my targets. Centre-back is somewhere I think we should target, and we've all been very much talking about Mr. Joe Rodon, who is apparently available for loan from Tottenham.
Dominated the group chat as Joe Rodon.
Yeah. He's apparently available for loan. A lot of Premier League clubs want him, so whether it's even feasible is another thing. But I think we've all come to terms with the fact that Ream cannot start for us next season in the Premier League. At least not regularly, if we want to have a solid defence. As much as I really like Tim Ream, and I think he's been good this season, Joe Rodon is a younger alternative who has found games in the Premier League at a higher club in terms of league positioning, very hard to come by. But he was great for Swansea. He plays for Wales. He's filled in for Tottenham and looked okay. I think that he'd be a really good addition, and I think that whoever we get in, if we do get in a centre-back now, it's about trying to get that partnership between him and Tosin now, rather than trying to do it in the summer, last minute, as we almost definitely will. Last one for me would be targeting some sort of winger. And I don't know who. I'm not going to say Sariki Dembele for the 7th year in a row, because I'm not 100% sure he could step up to the Premier League. But yeah, a winger of some sort, because at the moment we've got Cabana and we've got Wilson, and they've been great. But behind that, who's pushing them? It's not Cavallero, it's not Knockaert.
Certainly not Knockaert.
It's not even Bobby D. Cordova-Reid at the moment. He's not.
Right.
He seems to be in more of a midfield option at the moment. So yeah, those would be my 3. Okay, Yakulshu. Sorry, I'm butchering the name. Joe Rodon and a winger.
Right. There's a lot to unpack there. Hopefully it will come to fruition, especially Joe Rodon. I know he's on the radar of most Premier League clubs.
By the way, just to say, absolutely no information has been given to you. Like, these are just like... so don't be suddenly expecting these guys to sign, because,
Yeah.
we'll be praying on deadline day on a live stream, but that's about it.
I'm sure there'll be some sort of activity, some sort of,
Yeah.
in terms of incomings. In terms of outgoings, I think Christie could be off, Sessegnon could be off, Anguissa could be permanently off, which actually could bring in the funds to sign someone before the second tier start having another meltdown. Second tier pod, that is. I'm going to put one name in the ring, and it's going to be met with rolling eyes from everyone who's watching.
Oh my
Bring
word.
back Ryan Fredericks, please, from West Ham. Not getting any game time. Kenny Tete, yes, he's fantastic, but imagine just bringing on Ryan Fredericks with 10 minutes to go. The way we love to
There's only one
bomb the
issue I have
fullbacks
with
now.
this deal is that he has to come in a double deal with Arthur
Masuaku.
Masuaku. He has to come in because the Congolese link up on the left wing is very much needed at Craven Cottage.
Look, if I said this on the pod yesterday, if West Ham want to sign Anthony Robinson, then we are not even going to blink at it without the possibility of Arthur Masuaku coming in on the other way. I think that's it. Apart from the partnership we made with Dundee United today, I don't think there's much to talk about, which is quite a good partnership. Do you know anything more about that?
No, but that sounds interesting. It effectively, I think it's just a way of sharing insight, scouting of players, facilities, coaches. I just think it benefits both clubs, really. And you would presume that it will involve a pathway for players as well. So, for example, if Dundee United needed a player and we needed to loan out someone, for example, we could loan them there, vice versa. Although I think it's fair to say that the caliber of player we've got is higher. So I think it will be more likely our players going to them at this current moment in time, that is anyway. So it's interesting, and it's good to see us trying something new. We don't use the Scottish market that frequently, and we've got Kieran Bowie, who's been doing very well for our youth team. So maybe it's a market we want to explore more, and we want some insight from those who are more experienced at it. And I'm all for it.
Yeah, you never know. It could be definitely a market to look into in the future. Finally, score prediction for Bristol City. Why
1-1.
not? So it's going to have to go to extra time.
So boring. Weiman's going to score. Or maybe Martin, one of them.
Martin.
I don't know who's going to score for us, but I would love it to be Muniz. I would love it. So I'm going to say Muniz. It'll go to extra time. Nothing will happen. It'll go to penalties, but this time we will be victorious on penalties.
We'll be in the hat for round 4
we'll be in the
for
hat
another
for round
fixture
4. Yeah.
where we draw Swansea away.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine?
Oh.
You know what? I think now I get more of a fear about being in the hat for the FA Cup draw, just at the fear of getting a horrendous draw, which always seems to happen. But I would love Spurs away. Come on, please. Just give us Spurs away. Or AFC Wimbledon away, of course, who are playing Boreham Wood on Saturday. I'm also going to say 1-1 and penalties. And again, I'm going to say we're going to win on penalties.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who's going to be the hero? It's going to be Natty Chabs. Natty Chabs is going to...
Natty Chabs. Okay, yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, Natty Chabs means Nathaniel Chalobah. He is going to send us to round 4, where we'll be playing at home to Cardiff.
God, that's dull.
Just think of the most dull
get me out of this
ever.
Competition now.
Look, you never know, and more
I
games.
Think we should probably do Reading score predictions as well.
Yeah, we're not going to speak. We're not going to speak on Monday. We're going to speak Wednesday the 12th.
Well, 2-0 Fulham, I reckon.
2-0 Fulham away at Reading?
2-0 Fulham. I reckon we'll get back to winning ways. And this is a game where I think a lot of people are expecting us to slip up because we always seem to struggle against Reading. So I'm going to go against that. And I'm going to... Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm going to go with 2-0.
Yeah, I think Reading are a team to get at, and I think they can be got at. But Andy Carroll does scare me, especially up against... Ream and Tosin. That'll be a good battle. Reading away 3-1. 3-1 Fulham. We just need to play. Will Fulham ever play again? That's at the bottom. But look, we've rambled on for a long time. We gave it a bumper episode today because of the lack of action and Jack and Joe show over the
Oh my
last
god!
couple of
Imagine
weeks.
how long it's going to be when we actually play a game.
Could you
Jeez.
imagine? Bristol City away, 7:30 coach from Craven Cottage. We'll see you there. Come on, Fulham. We're back into the swing of things, hopefully. Touch wood. Let's not get any more postponements because this season is draining enough. Let's go, Fulham. Joe, thanks very much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jack. And fingers crossed we actually have a game to talk about next time.
If not, we will go over our transfer talk. I'm sure that there's plenty to talk about. And we are Fulham. We're never boring and we are vile. We'll see you later.